Hello, my name is Eve. I'm one of Jesus' ancestors, his grandmother many times over. But I'm also one of your ancestors, your grandmother many times over. I am everybody's ancestors and grandmother many times over. That is because I am the first woman who ever lived. Some people honor me as the source of all human life. Other people despise me as the source of all human trouble. Well, both facts about me are true. They are also true about my husband, Adam. Please let me tell you our story, because it's also your story. But even more than that, it's God's story and Jesus' story. In the beginning, it was just Adam and me. We lived together in the beautiful garden that God had planted for us. We worked in the garden, but it was pure pleasure. No weeds, no stinging insects, no sweat, no pain. Adam and I were best friends. We knew we were different from each other, but that didn't cause any stress or distrust between us. Our differences were a blessing. God was our close friend too. God taught us to see ourselves as made in His image. God taught us to love and respect and honor Him. We had a wonderful life there. And then, one day, it all went wrong. One of the animals in the garden came up and spoke to me. Now, I just assumed all the animals were my friends, servants of God, just like I was. So, I was unprepared when the snake opened our conversation with a surprising question. Did God actually say? That was my first experience of doubt. Until then, I trusted God completely because I didn't know this trust was possible. I believed God spoke the truth because I didn't know untruth existed. The snake's question was about the many beautiful trees in our garden, all of them hanging with ripe, sweet fruit. God had said all of those trees belonged to us, except for one. Just one. God had said, "Stay away from that tree. Don't eat its fruit. Don't even touch it. If you eat it, you will die." God explained what death is, but I didn't really understand what He meant. Nothing in our garden had died yet. But more importantly, I believed and trusted God. God said, "Don't eat the fruit." So I didn't eat the fruit. Why would I even consider it? Yet the snake came along and said, "Really? Why not?" I couldn't come up with a good answer. All I could say is, God is generous to us. He has given us so many trees with so much fruit. But the snake focused my attention on the one fruit I couldn't eat and said, "God told you an untruth. He said you would die if you ate the fruit, but you won't. God won't let you eat that fruit because He is jealous. He doesn't want you to become great and powerful like Him. Because if you do eat the fruit, you'll know as much as God does. You'll be as powerful as God is. You'll be able to tell the difference between good and evil." I bet it's hard for you to imagine. But those words, good and evil, didn't mean anything to me. I knew only good, because everything God did for us was good. I knew only good, so I assumed the snake was good too. And now I had a terrible problem. God said one thing, but the snake said the opposite. Who was telling the truth? Who should I trust? What should I do now? Many people have said to me since that this was all God's fault. After all, why did God put a forbidden tree in the garden? Wasn't He just tempting me and Adam? And why did He let the snake in? I understand why people ask those questions. The problem is, if you're asking those questions, you're already on the side of the snake. The problem was never the tree and its fruit, or the snake, or even my ignorance of evil. The problem was always whether I trusted God. If the God who made me and blessed me and gave me and Adam to each other and created a beautiful garden for us to live in, if this God said, Eve, don't eat that fruit, it's bad for you, well, I should have believed Him. The question was always about God, never about the tree or the fruit or the snake. The simple truth is, suddenly, God wasn't enough for me. All at once, I didn't trust or believe Him. I stopped seeing God and instead put all my attention on the forbidden fruit. I thought, if I eat it, I'll know as much as God does. I'll be as powerful as God is. I'll distinguish good from evil, whatever that means. I can make my own garden. I can make my own friends and animals. I don't have to wait for God to give me what I need. I can do it all myself. Isn't that very best thing? To be totally independent, knowledgeable, powerful, and not need anyone or anything else? It sure seemed that way. So I pulled one of the fruits off the forbidden tree and I took a bite. And in that last moment, when Adam and I were still best friends, I gave him a bite of the fruit too. It was the last moment we ever had when we wanted to share everything equally. And then, disaster. Knowledge came all at once, but not wisdom. I realized that the snake had lied to me. I didn't suddenly know the difference between good and evil, but I did know that I was naked. The differences between me and Adam suddenly became a source of shame. We were both horrified at our own bodies. We became strangers to our own skins. We tore at one of the nice trees and used its leaves to cover ourselves up. Then we ran and hid. We didn't want to see ourselves or each other, and we didn't want God to see us at all. But God came looking for us, just like He always did. When He couldn't find us, He called out. Adam answered, I hear you, but I'm scared. I'm hiding. Also, I'm ashamed because I'm naked. I've covered myself up." God knew then what had happened. "Adam, what have you done?" God thundered. "Did you eat from the one tree I told you not to touch?" And then, it still breaks my heart to remember it. Adam, my best friend, my joy and my delight. Adam betrayed me. He tried to make himself good and me evil. I guess he did learn something about good and evil. But not enough. Not enough to accept his own part in evil. "It's not my fault, God," Adam declared. "I would have been just fine on my own. It's the fault of that woman you gave me. She tricked me into eating the fruit." You might be angry at Adam for treating me this way. That's fair. I was pretty angry too. But hadn't I just been imagining how nice it would be to be totally independent? Not needing God or anyone else? Yes, Adam betrayed me. But I also betrayed Adam. And I betrayed God. Of course, I wasn't any more willing to take responsibility for my actions than Adam was. I also tried to pull off the blame. When God asked me to explain myself, I said, "It's not my fault. It's the fault of that snake you put in our garden. I was totally innocent, and the snake tricked me." Well, it turns out that God did judge the snake as the real traitor and enemy in the garden. So God spoke a terrible curse over the snake. "You will be the most cursed, the most hated of all animals." But then God made a prediction. "You and this woman will hate each other. More than that, you and this woman's son will hate each other. You will try to attack her son, but her son will crush your head under his foot." Then God spoke some hard words over me. "The differences between you and Adam that used to be a blessing will become a source of pain and suffering. You will no longer see eye to eye. You will get tired of his power over you, and the two of you will fight against each other." Finally, God turned to Adam and said, "You used to enjoy easy and pleasant work in the garden, but no more. Now, the ground itself will fight back against you, but you will have to keep working at it every day of your life to support your wife and the children she bears you. And at the end of a lifetime of work, you will die. You will sink back into the ground, dust to dust." You might wonder how Adam and I had the courage to go on living. At the time, it sure felt like end of the world and the end of the story. But it turns out it was only the beginning of the world and the beginning of the story. God didn't let our distrust and betrayal stop his whole plan for creation. So God forced Adam and me to reconcile. It was never easy and pleasant between us as before. But we did become partners again in a new way. working hard to survive in our new situation. That's when Adam gave me my name, Eve. Eve means mother of all living. He knew that I was going to suffer when I gave birth to our children, so he wanted to honor my suffering with the recognition that I would give life to every other person who would ever live. God also dressed us in better clothes, not leaves, but animal skins. God couldn't take our shame away completely, but he could cover it up. God also sent us out of the garden, away from the tree of life, so that we could die someday. A blessing, actually, because that meant we wouldn't be stuck in our bad new life forever and ever. And then there's that promise God made about the snake and my son. Someday, God promised, a son would be born to my line, a son who would defeat the snake once and for all. So the snake could never again invade God's garden and ruin it. I didn't live to see that son. Many generations came and went before that son was born. But he did come, and he did defeat the snake. And because of him, Adam and I have a new chance at life with God. And so do you.